And we are back for part two of our Dark Knight discussion. We meandered quite a bit in the first half. That's fine. Everything at this point is kind of, like you were saying, derivative. The number of articles that have come out this week that have been talking about this have all been basically the same thing about how the casting choice and the legacy and blah 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 blah. Um,
There's
but
there's only one that should have won, and it's a meme.
what?
That year.
Oh, okay, yeah, like we were saying in part one, we're looking up the best supporting actor.
Yeah.
For
the year that Ledger won. The
Yeah.
only other one that should have won is Robert Downey Jr. for
oh shit,
Tropic
who else was in it, or who else was up for it?
Thunder. Josh Brolin for Milk, which he was in that very little, and he didn't have to do a lot in that movie other than just be menacing traditional white man.
He's pretty good at that.
Yeah. Philip Seymour Hoffman with his when he was alive, his annual nomination for something.
What was he in?
He was in Doubt, which I think won. I think
Okay.
Meryl Streep won probably her 37th Oscar for her role in that, and Michael Shannon was up.
Huh.
But yeah,
I didn't know that.
Ledger won over Robert Downey Jr. playing a dude disguised as a dude playing another dude.
There was making fun of Oscar bait that almost
Yes.
won an Oscar.
Yes,
Which-
would have been the best thing ever.
The most, you wouldn't even need Deadpool because that would have been so
Oh!
meta.
Tying this up to our now scuttled episode, Milk won Best Original Screenplay, of which In Bruges was nominated for.
Really?
Yes.
Okay, so a bit of background there. We started doing an episode on In Bruges, but I was drunk when I watched it. Need to rewatch it. Drew hasn't watched it in a few years.
Here's
That's
my
an
question.
upcoming episode.
How do you give Best Original Screenplay to a historical screenplay? These are actual things that happened. You didn't craft them.
It's still a screenplay though that's not derived from another work.
Yeah.
So sure, whatever. But you were about to say something about Iron Man.
What I was gonna say was Iron Man came out earlier that year. This is 2008. I graduated. I left my college, my undergrad, my bachelor's graduation, and went to see Iron Man that day. So this happened in 2008. So with all the hype around the Dark Knight that we were talking about in part one, how did that not become the template for making a ton of movies? How come Iron Man being fun, like, became the template? Was it because it always seemed like the Dark Knight and Batman Begins, even when there was just two of them, was very insular and wasn't like trying to establish a universe?
Like we talked about in the first one, The Dark Knight was simply a movie made in the traditional way that you make movies.
Yeah.
Whereas Marvel, you've got the end credit scene right from the beginning.
Yeah.
This was planned. This was a calculated gamble on their part to do a movie the way that they did it and to build it into something else.
Which considering we said we were going to get into the sequels, I like that there's a definitive end to the Nolan Batman.
Oh yeah.
Like it does have a wrap up that makes sense within that storyline. Whether you agree with it or not, it does make sense within that universe. Because I mean, can you imagine if that had gotten that those first two movies were what became the vehicle for the DC universe? Like how watered down and bad would on our fifth Batman movie have been by now? Because Nolan would have already left. He probably would have left. Like he wanted to do the three movies and then wanted to do other stuff,
which I'm thankful for.
Yeah, but yeah, I'm glad that there was I'm glad that Warner at the time wasn't chasing the cinematic universe dollar, the easy money as they saw or thought that they were going to get when they decided to start trying to do that, and just let hey, we're gonna let you who has a good thing going finish this, and then we'll decide what we want to do after that.
And yeah, that's where the huge difference is. It's the difference between starting a franchise and making a movie. You can make a franchise of, and we've talked so highly recently of the Marvel releases the last.
Yeah, because that feels like it was we were on the dip of the roller coaster and we didn't realize that we were climbing up to something more.
But we've spoken so highly of it. I hate to come back and just start bashing it in comparison to The Dark Knight and say that it's all just formulaic crap. You can have some good stuff in a formulaic movie. I'm not saying that you can't, but there's no one's outside of maybe Guardians with James Gunn because it's James Gunn.
Yeah.
No one's ever going to say, look at the artistic vision that whoever had in Doctor Strange.
Yeah, the Marvel movies, they feel like you could have anybody writing them and anybody competent shooting them, and you wouldn't be able to really tell the difference. You feel like they all feel like they're ghost written by the same cabal of like 5 people who've been writing these all from the beginning. Except for Shane Black's Iron Man 3 feels very different than any of the other Marvel Universe movies.
In a good way or bad way?
In a good way.
Okay. Which is weird
because
it's one of the most.
It reminds me a lot of like Kiss Kiss Bang Bang and like the weird like.
But isn't it one of the most hated of the MCU?
And I think it's because the fanboys didn't like that they made fun of the Mandarin, which I thought was funny because the Mandarin's a dumb character anyways. He wears alien engine parts on his fingers. It's dumb. But
Dark Knight.
But no. But going back to what you were saying, is the Dark Knight the last of the traditional? Hey, this movie was successful. We're going to make sequels. Because if you're going to look in just comic book universes, you've got the Spider-Man trilogy, the Raimi trilogy, which became bad at the end because he wanted out and the studio wouldn't let him out, so he just kind of torpedoed it. That's another story. But and then you've got Nolan's Batman, which comes far later. We were at the tail end of high school when the
original Spider-Mans, yeah.
And then that was back before Marvel, or at the time it was, I think, Paramount. Maybe it wasn't. Who had the rights for all the Marvel characters, was starting to like, oh, we're going to do this with Daredevil. And then they're like, how about no? That didn't work out at all. But you felt like they were trying to not connect them all, but we're like, oh, we're going to have 3 movies for every one of the characters that we've had rights to. They may not be in the same universe, but Batman feels like it's the last. The Nolan Batman feels like it's the last of those, where it's just like, we're going to tell this character's story over a couple movies. Now it's everything's interconnected regardless of what you're doing.
And I think that at this point, if you tried to do that again, it would just feel derivative of the Dark Knight trilogy. Everyone's talking about...
If you tried to go as serious in tone as the Dark Knight.
Well, you're talking about... Isn't Scorsese doing a Joker movie?
I don't believe anything that Warner puts out. I feel like they put out these feeler leaks to try to gauge interest before they even commit to anything.
But for the sake of argument, let's say it's true. Let's say that Scorsese is doing a standalone Joker crime movie. I know. If you had said that in the 1980s, I'd be really excited.
Yeah, because he probably would have just used the Nicholson Joker and made something pretty cool. Scorsese as he is now, I don't really think he's that great anymore.
You might still be able to. I mean, I guess Nicholson's got it. I mean, yeah. Departed was only 12 years ago. So yeah.
I always have a thing about The Departed because everybody's like, "Oh, what a great movie!" And it's like, it's a Chinese movie that he copied.
Yeah. But getting back on track.
No,
anything that you do that is anything, you've got 2 things you can do. You can try to do a cinematic universe, or you can be derivative of the Dark Knight.
Yeah, dude, just focus character stories.
No, and nobody, like when Logan came out, no one really considered a part of the. It really doesn't fit with the rest of those movies.
It's sufficiently divorced in ways that, hey, we can keep what we know you expect lore-wise counts, but we're gonna fudge up the years in between, which I thought was awesome.
But as soon as it came out, every headline was the best superhero movie since The Dark Knight.
Which is what everybody says about everything when they.
So what would you have to do a superhero movie that is none of the above? That is not part of some growing expanded universe, or not just a somewhat copied version of The Dark Knight?
I don't know, because like there's so many weird things that have tried to do stuff like Super with Rainn Wilson is kind of like the ultra realistic. It's the more it's the not as absurd as Kick-Ass's version of like, this is what would happen if some idiot tried to actually do this in the real world.
Well, I guess that Unbreakable did it.
Yeah, but now Unbreakable is a part of a universe.
Right. And even then, Unbreakable was, even though it's getting a sequel, at the time it was a one-trick pony.
Well, yeah.
You took a very interesting concept and somehow no one talks about it as the best of Shyamalan's career.
Yeah.
But back to, you know what?
Lady in the Water is clearly the best Shyamalan movie. I don't know what you're talking about.
I'm going to ignore that and talk about the upcoming Spawn movie, because the upcoming Spawn movie is basically a big episode of Law and Order SVU.
Are they really sticking with the Sam and Twitch story, with Spawn being kind of like the Jersey Devil that apparently shows up occasionally on
From
cases?
what I've heard so far, that's been the most consistent.
But you don't cast Jamie Foxx to not use him, so I have no faith in this project whatsoever.
I don't know. It's, you could.
Yeah.
You're gonna need at least a photo on a wall at Wanda's house, so you need Jamie Foxx's face.
Yeah. Listen, Jamie, we're hiring you, and then we're gonna cover you in horrific burns for the entire time you're shown in the picture.
If Tom Hardy can get away with it wearing a mask in every movie,
yeah, but that's like Tom Hardy's thing now, is being able to just literally make his money with his eyes and his brow.
Let's talk about The Dark Knight Rises.
Okay.
You hate it. I love it.
I don't hate everything about it. I really like that they went the closest that anybody's ever adapted Bane.
The super smart guy that just figured out who Bruce
smart
Wayne
guy who literally saw how Bruce Wayne walked and realized, yeah, that fucker's Batman. Like in the comics, that fucker's Batman. Like immediately.
Here's why I liked it. It was subversive in a way that I didn't appreciate until a couple of viewings later. It was very much Bane playing off the whole let's eat the rich, we're going to give it to you, the people, as a way to show that if given that, people could very well destroy themselves or be so distracted that they let themselves get destroyed, was a very interesting message to be putting into a comic book movie.
It just always came off as like, hey, we're gonna do the plot for the first movie of like, we're just gonna let you all rot, and just turned it up to 11 and just got so stupid.
Why stupid?
Oh my god. Every aspect of The Dark Knight Rises is ridiculous and would never happen. In a grounded, realistic world, that would never happen. And it feels totally like divorced from everything in the other two Batman movies.
So it made its way.
And this is including the echolocation phone thing from the second movie, because that kind of makes sense to a degree. Location software, it does exist. Tiles do exist. You can do that type of thing. But we're gonna take over one of what in this universe is considered one of the premier American cities. Just blow up the bridges and take it over. I'm sorry, but the American government would accept the collateral losses of destroying that entire city's population if they needed to. Just send a message that they don't negotiate with terrorism. It would never work in the real world. They were hanging people from the bridges. That would never happen.
I'm not saying that you're wrong. I'm saying that if we're talking about a Christopher Nolan movie, which we are, Christopher Nolan movies, every single one of them, when you put them under a microscope, they fall apart. He works in themes, not in story.
Yeah, character-wise, it makes complete sense, and it's a great turn to have, hey, we're gonna like literally take the main character of this, and he's already broken from years of off-screen Batmaning, and the interesting concept of he did his job so well because this is a closed universe where he doesn't have to deal with outside forces, just Gotham, and he did his job so well that it's like basically a crime-free city at that point. And then you throw in just like everything falls apart when it really just becomes clear that Bane's a fucking henchman.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
I still like it.
I like all the Catwoman stuff because I think that was an angle that the other movies didn't show. Because she's kind of like the dark mirror to like, hey, I come from wealth and like virtue and I'm gonna do the right thing, and she's just like, I'm gonna do what I need to survive type of thing. And it's better than the Michelle Pfeiffer version, and it's as close as the animated version you're gonna get.
Well, speaking of female leads, how much do you think was lost going over to Maggie Gyllenhaal?
you're changing over from a cherry plank to a pine plank. Neither can act. The character was a was
it throwaway?
Yeah, the character was a prop. She had a bit more to do in the first movie, and she's a plot device in the second movie. She's just one more face in the, hey, everybody in these Batman movies knows who Batman is.
So what haven't we talked about?
I don't know. It's just Dark Knight Rises just falls apart. Like you said, it falls apart on repeat viewings unless you're really just committed to the theme here is all that matters, not the practicality.
We'll try watching Inception.
Yeah. But Inception's whole thing is built upon, hey, you have to really buy into this technology being a thing.
We'll try watching fucking Interstellar.
Yeah, same thing.
Yeah.
But you've had 2 movies already to establish this is a pretty credible universe in this Batman universe.
So your big criticism was that it moved away from how grounded it was.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's my problem with it. I don't mind. I don't necessarily mind the twist at the end, other than that Bane is just a henchman, basically. The fact that you're given this character who's calculating, and then at the end he finds out, or you find out that he was like, but Matalia, I'll do anything for Matalia. It just completely neuters his character.
Oh, that's great. In 30 seconds, you
blew the movie open.
You've caused me to completely, I don't know, I'm sick of my guns.
It's only there for the bait and switch too. It's only there for those of us that know. Yeah, Bane was raised in a prison. Bane was raised in a prison in this movie, and then you get the swerve, and you're like, okay, I get that you wanted to go with this character, but why not have established her early on? But it's there for shock value, really.
I will accept your assessment, but I will stick to my guns and say that thematically, overall, I think the movie is
the best aspect
than
the best aspect of The Dark Knight Rises is the blowing open of the Dent Accords or whatever, the Dent Act of the. This is built on a lie. Your whole government and your peace is built on a lie. Is the best part of that movie.
Which.
Jim Gordon writing all that down fucked everything up, didn't it?
And you know what? And that's where I'm willing to overlook a lot of the movie's flaws.
Like putting a woman in co-ed general population, which would never fucking happen. I don't care how talented and how deadly she is, that would never happen. I'm just gonna poke holes in that movie because it just feels hasty. It feels thrown together in certain aspects.
Backing up, I guess, to the Dark Knight, though. 10 years later, we're still talking about it. 10 years later, it's still the benchmark. 10 years later,
I don't think it's gonna go away. I don't think it's gonna go away until it gets to the point where dumb kids are saying it looks goofy and old.
How? How could it? They actually flipped over a tractor trailer.
Yeah.
Certain special effects are never going to age poorly because they're real.
Yeah, there's not a lot of CG in those movies, which is excellent.
The scene where the Batmobile, or the Tumbler, I'm sorry, drives into the garbage truck with a 3rd scale model.
Oh wow, we're actually using models and things that are actually real.
Total aside, I just picked up the Blu-ray of The Thing.
Oh yeah,
and 1982, and those special effects.
I can't believe hearing that they did all practical for the new one, which I have not seen, and maybe will just because I like bad things sometimes. And then they just were like, "No, it looks too fake." It's like that's the whole point. It's supposed to look unsettling and fake, not that looks like it came from a video game fake.
Dark Knight. God, maybe I'll rewatch that. If I go back and listen to every episode we've ever done and tally up everything that I said we're probably going to do an episode on that we haven't gotten to, we would actually have enough content to last for the next 50 fucking years.
Probably.
But that would involve me going back and listening
but we're lazy, and we'll claim that we're overworked.
Well, I work 65 hours. Well, 60-ish hours a week.
Yeah. But, No, I don't think it's going to lose that benchmark aspect. It's going to be one of those AFI top 50 movies for the entirety of our lives, I would imagine.
Did we ever actually classify the movie if it was comic book or if it was something else?
It's
Did we ever
definitely-
finish that
It's
conversation?
definitely comic book. What would it just be? Like fantasy drama?
Crime movie with comic book characters?
Crime drama? I don't know. That's
It
probably
just-
the
it's-
closest you got, yeah.
It almost doesn't seem fair to measure other comic book movies against
It's
it.
one of those things where you could probably tell that same story. It wouldn't get as much exposure, and it wouldn't be as well known, but it would probably be well received. You could do that same story without the licensing, without the character licensing, and people would have been like, you know what would have been the best Batman movie? That villain crime movie. You change this, make that character Batman, you make this guy kind of like more obviously the Joker. That's the best Batman movie that never was made. Like that's the kind of movie it would be, but it was a Batman movie, which is like
Which
what
makes it
super unique in
better.
that way. But there are always those things like people before they. I remember everybody really hoping that they were going to do the Riddler, and I think he probably should have done the Riddler for the third movie, just because I think he could have done a character like that in that realistic setting, in that realistic world,
Oh yeah, you
and
made
had it be like what people were missing from, like people like me who were like, he needs to be more of a detective. Just make a real Riddler like kind of plot. Like you could have kind of done.
You could have turned the Riddler into Jigsaw from Saw.
Yeah, it could have been like it could have like maybe you don't want to do like the body horror, but it could have been like a homicidal type of thing like that, like where it's like a. Remember when Morgan Freeman was doing all those like movies in the '90s, like Kiss the Girls and stuff like that?
Along Came a Spider.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It could have been one of those what do they call those, like a suspense crime suspense thriller.
Yeah.
That could have been like the Riddler Nolan Batman movie.
And
But he wanted to tell like I think more so he wanted that story to be about like Gotham and how it evolved based on Batman being there. Which again, if you look over some of the migraine inducing nonsense in The Dark Knight Rises, that story is told.
since we're just bullshitting now, who would you have cast for the Riddler?
I don't know. Everybody wanted you know what? Maybe somebody like David Hyde Pierce, an older guy that has like that kind of spindly kind of frame, would have been good in that role.
I'm gonna go with two, and don't laugh, but Jim Carrey.
Oh, like more serious older Jim Carrey?
Yes.
Yeah. 'Cause that could have been cool because you could have had a Joker that, or not a Joker, or a Riddler
Riddler.
that's like charismatic and likable, but he's horrible. You know what I mean? Like that would have been interesting as far as the character to be.
I think the other way you could have gone with it would have been more like Jake. Is it Gyllenhaal or Gyllenhaal? How does he pronounce it? Gyllenhaal?
Yeah.
Yeah. I should know that. But him in the movie where he's the freelancer, Nightcrawler.
Oh, I haven't seen Nightcrawler yet. That's
How
what I
have
gotta
you not
watch.
seen? Okay.
How have you not seen In Bruges?
Well,
Exactly.
I
We can
have
go
seen
there.
it, motherfucker.
We can go there, but no, that's another one that I.
Yeah, look that one up. That's
Yeah.
that'll be our
Our
staff
homework.
recommendation
Yeah.
episode. In
That
Bruges.
was one that I wanted to
and
see because I heard good things about it.
I loved it.
I've never seen it. I've never seen as far as artsy stuff that's come out in the last. I haven't seen Only God Forgives either.
Neither have
that's
I.
good.
But I did just buy Under the Skin.
Yeah, I've heard that's good.
I've had so many people recommend it, and then
Yeah.
Jay on RLM is always talking about it.
Yeah.
So I kind of feel like I have to see it.
But yeah, I don't know, like making a Riddler that in that universe that was like charismatic and actually likable, but was like sinister at the end would have been an interesting turn because you got out and out bad guys in those Nolan Batman movies. Like they're just bad people. Like to a degree, Descartes is like charismatic and personable, but it's once you realize that he's just like indoctrinated in this whole. You just gotta kill anybody who's criminal, basically, or doing criminal things.
Any final thoughts?
I think we've talked enough about it. Like you said, it's 10 years old. It doesn't feel like it's 10 years old. I feel like it's never gonna age out of being relevant. Not even amongst comic book movies. Just of here's how you can maybe just as adaptations go, as like there's always a way to adapt something. that you might not have thought possible.
It's amazing. We've sat here and talked about a movie that is 10 years old that we both remember very well, even though I haven't sat down and watched it start to finish in at least a couple years.
Yeah.
I got pieces here and there. We haven't even talked about Michael Caine. We haven't talked about Gary Oldman.
Yeah, those movies just had everything is superb cast.
We could sit here
where the casting really mattered.
We could do another hour on this and just talk about it and never really lose steam because it's that important of a movie. It was that, God.
And that annoys me though, that aspect of, because like it's one of those things where it's like, as nerd culture is, you kind of wish not everybody knew about it. It's like, no, that's our thing. You just assumed that it was for you type of thing. It's that exclusionary aspect of nerd hobbies and nerd culture that's the worst about it, the most insufferable aspect of it. No, you can't have our things because you don't like us type of thing. But no, stuff like The Dark Knight needs to happen more often. Not necessarily derivative, but stuff that makes you actually think about, goofy men in tights.
And stuff that also stuff that shows that you can change the formula.
Yeah.
Stuff that's inventive.
I mean, you can incorporate aspects of it. I mean, look at The Winter Soldier, which is probably my favorite Marvel Universe movie.
Yes.
Other than maybe Infinity War, where there's
a lot of... Don't say that out loud.
There's a lot of, there's a lot of, the grays of life that are shown in that movie that I feel probably was taken from elements of the Nolan trilogy. Of we can tell real, thought-provoking, conversation starter stories in these men in tights fighting, punching people movies when we really want to. When it's not just about Paul Rudd making jokes and throwing Pez dispensers. I haven't even seen it yet, and I'm just like, oh, okay, time to enter the Marvel coal mine until I can find that kernel of gold again.
And on that, I guess we'll end it.
So basically, it's still unique even in this oversaturated superhero universe, cinematic world, and it probably won't be topped.
It is
matched.
It is a masterclass on how you can take an existing genre, combine it with some other genres, and do something
that satisfies everybody, really.
Yeah, that no one else had really been doing at the time.
I mean, the only people who don't like that movie now are people who, like I said, are contrarian just because everybody likes it and everybody acknowledges its greatness, that they just want to be the naysayer. And oh, it's not as good as everybody thinks it is because everybody likes it. If everybody likes it, how can it be good? Wrong.
Because it's a good movie.
Yeah. Good movies are good movies. News at 11.
It combines a decent amount of practical effects with decent...
Tight plot, tight narrative.
A great crime plot, great casting.
Aesthetics. Just cinematography.
And I'm just gonna, for the sake of saying something a little bit, I don't want to say contrarian, but I will say that my favorite Alfred might be Sean Pertwee from
Gotham.
From Gotham. I love Michael Caine, but there's something about the whole surrogate father aspect of Sean Pertwee's portrayal that just gets me a little bit better.
Yeah.
So, yeah, cool. We're gonna end it there. Like we into that, we might do a staff recommendations on In Bruges.
We'll come up with more
something and
banal derivative stuff for you later.
But yeah, cool. Thanks for listening. Yell at us if you're one of those people that's contrarian and didn't like The Dark Knight. Please
Claims
say
do not like The Dark Knight because we will call you on it because you definitely.
Yeah, please say so in the comments. And then go fuck yourself.
Yeah, we could easily ignore those too.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for listening.